the Theotek Podcast. This morning we're talking iPad Pro and maybe a little Apple TV. We have one of our team members here is Rick Mansfield, who's a regular.
Good morning,
Rick. And also you see Wes Allen is down there. He's another one of our regulars.
How you doing?
Pastor in New Jersey, in the Philadelphia area. But today what we wanted to talk to you about is, the iPad Pro finally shipped this week, and a lot of people may be curious, how good is it for Bible study, for maybe even preaching or teaching the Bible, and just general usage as well. And if we have time, I've got the new Apple TV in my house, literally. I don't have it with me right now, but we'll talk a little bit about that if we have time at the end. So, Rick, take it away. What's your first impressions just right off the bat? And he's.
I'm sorry. I switched to my hotspot, and so whatever you said in the last 10 seconds, I didn't catch.
Okay, we threw it to you.
Sorry, we're off to a great start today.
Yes.
We'll just start over.
Just edit this out.
Podcast. No, I'm kidding. No, I just said that we would be talking about the iPad Pro and its usage for Bible study, maybe teaching and preaching, and just general usage. And then I asked, what's your first impressions right off the bat?
My first impressions are that it's very big. I'm just going to bring it into the picture now, and really, you don't have a sense of scale when you're watching, when you watch the keynote and Tim Cook hold it and that kind of thing. But it is humongous. It's larger than what I thought it was going to be, and I really like it. But it's not necessarily ideal for reading in bed. So don't throw out your iPad Mini. But I do think it would. I think for some. Not for me yet, but for some it could be a computer replacement. I think that's the direction that Apple wants to take it. When I say computer replacement, because obviously it is a computer, to replace the traditional Windows, Macintosh kind of PCs. I think they see this as their next phase, and so it's getting there. It's taking steps to get there. There's a few things we can get into later where I think they're really aiming in that direction, but it's bigger than what I thought it was going to be. That's my first impression. It's really big.
Yeah, I've got some images here from the website I write for, and as you can see, that's an iPad Air on the left versus.
And see, that doesn't even show the scale because
it really doesn't.
Because that iPad Air is, that could be Photoshop, but it's kind of pulled forward.
That gives you a little bit better view of it. That's
a lot better.
The Air 2 and the Pro right there. So
right.
That does give you an idea. It's essentially not quite, but almost two iPad Airs side by side, right?
Yeah, without the bezels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm using my 2015 MacBook for this for the podcast today, and the screen on my MacBook is actually smaller than the screen on the iPad Pro.
Yeah, how does the screen look? That's one thing that my editor Josh Smith said, that the screen looks great, and I've heard that numerous times, that the screen is beautiful. Yeah,
incredible screen. I don't remember the exact resolution. It's it's 2700 and something by 2000, over 200 ppi. Just an incredibly rich screen. And I played for the first time last night. I played my wife a video trailer, and she even noticed the impressive sound because there's 4 speakers coming off of this. So.
Yeah, I had a chance to not pick it up and buy it, but just to play with it yesterday at a Best Buy nearby, and that's one of the things I noticed was, how much louder it is than past iPads.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason. Yeah. What about apps? Do a lot of the apps sort of look weird because they're not designed yet for the larger display, or?
No, and it's surprising how many of the apps seem to have been updated already, and just kind of quietly. Like, you and I, the three of us, will talk over Slack. Slack has a little extra panel over on the side that normally you have to press for it to kind of pop up, like if you want to switch teams or whatever, that just stays there now. And so, there are a number of apps that are taking advantage of that. Some apps have not, and where you can really tell where an app is not taken advantage of is if you pull up the on-screen keyboard, because the on-screen keyboard, if it's been updated for the iPad Pro, is really nice. It is a full-size on-screen keyboard with the number row up there, and has some shortcuts and things like that. But if you pull up an app that doesn't have that yet, like the Facebook app, for instance, hasn't been updated, which is surprising since they're doing updates every week now. But you pull that keyboard up, and it's the old iPad keyboard, and so it looks very big and kind of clunky.
That was one of the things in my hands-on that I did at the Apple Store yesterday. I was shocked. I did not like that bigger keyboard. Do you like it?
Yeah, I've actually used it a good bit because I'm waiting for the they didn't have the keyboard cover in stock when I bought it on Wednesday, and so I'm waiting for that. And I have used it with, in fact, this morning I've got it set up here on my left with a just a regular Apple Bluetooth keyboard. But I liked it just sitting in my lap. That on-screen keyboard, I got to where I could very quickly touch type without having to look at it, and I've really had no problem.
See, I'm going to have to play with it more because that was the one thing. It's so big, I feel like I should be able to touch type on it, but you can't rest your fingers on the home row, so there's no reference point.
Yeah.
And that was like, I kept on going, I don't like this. And then you try to go back to the old way of typing on the iPad keyboard, and because the thing's so big, you feel like you're stretching out all over the place.
Yeah.
But you said you got used to it pretty quick?
Yeah, I got used to it pretty quickly, and that may be because I didn't have the keyboard cover.
You didn't have a crutch, so you couldn't.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, I haven't had any issues with it. In fact, I actually thought about it last night that, wow, I'm not having to really look at this at all. I just start typing.
Interesting.
I've been reading very good things about this keyboard, that it's actually a lot better than the Apple keyboard. Have either of you seen it yet?
I have not seen that one.
Yeah, they had that in the Apple Store when I went on Wednesday, and I looked at them and I seriously considered it. I would suggest that the keyboard aspect of it itself, the keys, they're backlit and so forth, it is a very nice looking, very nice feeling. Because I got one out of the box and looked at it. It is comparable to any good laptop keyboard, and Logitech does a really good job about making these keyboards for mobile devices. What kept me from buying it was the fact that the iPad, as you see in that picture there, the iPad actually slips into that cover, and it pops in, and it doesn't come out easily. And in fact, the employee at the Apple Store said to me, he said, we've been playing with them, and they're actually kind of hard to pull out. Because, there's at times when, again, if I'm sitting in the living room in the recliner or whatever, I don't want the full keyboard with it. I'm going to want to just have the iPad by itself in my lap. And to me, that was a lot of bulk. Plus, with the iPad in it, it really starts to be like a laptop. It's no longer as mobile, as portable. And we're probably, it probably doesn't weigh that much, but that's what made me decide to, I'm going to just hold out for the Apple keyboard cover. But if it did look like a quality keyboard, and Logitech makes good stuff, so I can't knock it. It was just for my purposes. I didn't get it.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. That is that I've actually decided, despite my earlier comments, that I'm going to go ahead and get the iPad Pro.
None of us are surprised.
We're not shocked, Kevin.
I no longer have the larger iPad. I've got an iPad Mini, and I miss using it for preaching and other things. And so I've contacted Logitech, and hopefully we'll have this keyboard in sometime in the next week or so.
And what's significant about that keyboard too is that it uses the connector that Apple has put into.
Yeah, it's not Bluetooth, right?
Right. It's not Bluetooth. It uses that connector, and it was available day one when Apple's own keyboards weren't available day one.
And that's what shocks me about this rollout is there was no fanfare. You said that the Apple employees didn't even realize they were going to be selling them that day, so they don't know what's going on. There's no setup out front. the accessories aren't there. This is bizarre for me. Just think, like, this is Apple that did this?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
You know, it surprised me because the rumor was that it was going to be available on, what was this, Wednesday morning? Did I have my days right? The rumor had been there that it was going to be available, and so I got up. You know, I set my alarm, got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which would be midnight Cupertino time, and about 10 after or so, they became available to order. And because they had announced it would be available, that you could order on Wednesday, they'd be available later in the week. I'm thinking Friday, and so when I placed my order, and I wanted it to be delivered to the local Apple store because I'm leaving town on Monday for the ETS and SBL conferences in Atlanta, and so I needed to have it in hand rather than having it shipped. So as soon as I had that order ready and I had it to deliver at the Apple store, it said available today, and I didn't expect that at all. I was really surprised, and so I went up to the Apple store early, because sometimes when they have new products, they actually let people go in a little bit early and get them. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a big crowd because I don't think this is every person is going to come out and get this. They had a few folks there, but it was like, I described it as like, I haven't seen this much scrambling since the last time I looked at the monkey exhibit at the zoo, because the Apple employees, they had gathered them up. I heard later from one of them that they had to call in kind of emergency. It seems like the manager didn't even know that these were going to be available. So they had them in the store, but they thought they were going to be selling them on Friday. And
it makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense. We got to see the Apple guys climbing up on top of the displays to plug stuff in, and the stuff that you normally never see because they do it either at night or they have some kind of covering over the front of the store. And they were down to the wire. There weren't people coming out to see us, and we heard mixed messages on the keyboard and the stylus. There was one fellow there who was a business customer, and his rep from the store came out and said, "We only have a few of the keyboards and styluses, but they will be available." When we got in, they weren't selling them at all, and when I asked another employee about it, he said, "Oh, we just have the display versions." And so I don't know what was true there and what was not. But it was very bizarre.
Hearing your story now, I'm wondering if they screwed up on the online side of things.
What do you mean?
That it wasn't supposed to say available today.
Yeah, maybe that was, or maybe it was the fact that I'd wondered about it. AT&T announced on Tuesday that they would have them in the store on Wednesday. And so maybe they had to do it last minute because AT&T was promising this because they wouldn't want one of their resellers to have it before their stores would. So maybe it was AT&T that jumped the gun. I don't know. But
yeah, somebody jumped the gun.
I figured
Best Buy had them too.
Who had them?
Best Buy had them on Wednesday too, and so that's why I don't think that's the case.
Well, I think
what's just
if
happened
somebody
here,
put it out, then it just went dominoes down the line. Like, so we're going to do it, so everybody had to follow suit.
Well, but Apple had to ship them to all the different stores.
Well, sure, they ship them in advance.
I don't. That's the thing. In the past, some of you may know, I don't live close to an Apple store, and so I almost always buy the new product at the local Best Buy store.
Right.
So I buy an Apple at Best Buy, and I've I go in there enough that I've gotten to know some of these folks by name, and we talk, and they tell me stuff, and they never get it in advance. They always get it like the night before, or sometimes the morning of the launch, and so if Apple shipped Best Buy the iPad Pro days in advance, that would have been a really big change from their past experience. And so I think what's happened is I think they just it's just not as smooth a rollout because chances are I just don't think they expect as many sales, and so they're not that worried about it.
No, I honestly think that they tried something new and they're never going to do it again. I think they shipped out the stuff early, and the resellers went, fine, we're putting it out, and then everybody went down like dominoes, and it's screwed up.
I don't see that. I don't see that. I think they just screwed up.
Well, they did screw up. I mean, I don't think they're ever doing it again.
For the manager of the Apple Store not to know ahead of time that they were going to be selling them, for them to have to call in, extra employees last minute, it sounds like there was a last minute decision to me.
It was. I think it was a big screw up. So.
Well, don't they have a new head of retail now, and
They do.
this person doesn't know what they're doing like the last person did. But
we're not going to do it again.
That's other podcasts cover that better than we can. Let's talk more about the thing that people probably are most interested in with this, and that is using it. I know you've only had it a couple of days, Rick, but in that short time, I personally think you have to use a device for at least weeks to months before you really know. But so understanding that, how is it as a Bible study tool? I know you use the Accordance app primarily. Have you opened up other apps? And
I have.
How does it just in general, not specifically with your app, but just in general, how is it as a Bible study tool?
It's really nice because you've got the split screen capability, and so you can open up. In fact, I sent a picture out over Twitter and other social media where I had Accordance on one side and I had Microsoft Word on the other side, and that's kind of a use case that I see, whether it's pastors or whether it's students, or to where you have these two apps side by side, and you're able to you can copy and paste, you can reference one while you type in the other, and it's extremely usable. And I was going to look here to see, because I've got most of the Bible apps on here. I know that Logos is available, because what happens is when you pull over from the side, it'll show you which apps are available for split screen. And so, in addition, and the Accordance is a beta that I'm running. It'll be released in a few days, I believe. I don't know the exact date yet, but Logos is available for this. I don't know. LaRosa's not with us this morning, so he could speak to Olive Tree. But I don't see Olive Tree on here. Right now, I just see, and I've got Word Search on here as well, but it's not showing up in the list. So it looks like I'm thinking just Logos for the moment is available for the split screen, which will not only work on this, but will work on the iPad Mini 4 and the iPad Air 2. But it really makes a nice concentrated study. I mean, this is what I already do, kind of with with a computer screen or a split screen view, where I'm used to having these two items side by side. Yeah, there's the picture that I posted, to where in that I had a biblical text up there. I think I had two texts. Yeah, I had two texts, and then I had a word processor on the side, and that's not my original work. I just copied that from a commentary. But to kind of show you what something like that would look like, and of course you can put a commentary in the second pane as well. But I think that's going to be really good. And the other aspect, using it for preaching or teaching, I connected it to my Apple TV with Keynote, and I pulled up a lesson that I had taught last week. And for years, since 2010, I've used Keynote on the iPad with a presenter screen, meaning that I can see the slide on my screen, I see my notes, and then on the projector, all that's seen is my slide. And so what was nice about this very large iPad is that it was it was larger for my older eyes, but I mean there was so much room there. Obviously. And I haven't looked at PowerPoint yet for this, because PowerPoint will do it too, but Keynote, they'd obviously had tweaked it to where you had more room for your notes, so the notes were extremely legible. You could scroll through them if you had a lot of them. You had that slide there. What I would like them to do is to have the view that we used to have on the computer, where you'd have the current slide, the next slide, and then your notes. And I think there's room for that. But I think this would be so much easier to teach from.
And Rick, you were able to do split screen?
Well, that's what I told you. I promised you I would try out last night, and I forgot to try that out. To try out the split screen while you're, while you're in presentation mode. I'm not sure how that would work.
Or if one job, man.
I know.
One job.
I'm sorry. I've been under the weather this week, and so I kind of turned in last night. I'm
sorry to interrupt. Is the iPad Pro software different enough that I could try it on my Mini and still see if it works? It won't look that great, but
yeah, split screen is split screen. So if split screen's turned on, it should work.
Okay. So I'll give it a try too. You know,
Okay.
it won't be the same, but
To me, that's the coolest thing. Like right now, I'm not interested in the iPad Pro, although it was really cool, and the pencil, we'll talk about that, I hope, in a little bit, was really neat. But man, that true split screen multitasking, I was even doing that on the Air 2 and on the Mini, and I had like Flickr open on one pane, and I had Keynote open on the other pane, and I could, and I was doing a Creative Commons search, and I was copying the image from Flickr and putting it over into Keynote, and it goes right in, and I was like, I love this. That's awesome.
And what's really nice about it is, because this has been the first device I've really been able to play with the iOS 9 split screen ability. I don't like El Capitan split screen. I don't like the way that they have updated split screen in Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
The Windows 7 and Windows 8 was better in my opinion, and now it's anyway. But what I like is that when you move it over, you can adjust it to whatever width that you want very fluidly.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of times where I don't want it even 50% and 50%. I want to have one of them, perhaps, but I don't necessarily want that default smaller size. You can move this very fluidly to whatever size you want, and the apps just adapt to that. And I really like that.
And they are able to set buffers. I know on Keynote you can't
Right.
make it like only 1/3 of the screen, so it's kind of cool the way the developers can play with that.
Yeah.
what about just the general apps? What other use cases do you find it excelling, and what do you think? Well, you already mentioned that you're not going to lay in bed and read with it, but
I've actually done that. It's just not the best experience.
It's like having a newspaper.
Really get some workout, man. We'll start seeing Rick. He'll be like all buff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What's he been doing? Reading on my iPad Pro.
That really is interesting though. It's about the same weight as the first gen iPad, right? Which we used to go through. And the thing is huge. I mean, when you go into the store, you're just like, holy smokes! And Kevin, you've seen this too.
Yeah.
But you pick it up, and your brain is expecting it to want to fall out of your hand.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
It's very light.
How they balance that thing so beautifully that you can actually walk around and use it. You can't do it well because it's flipping huge. But you can. I mean, to me, that's like a marvel of engineering.
But it's a bit unwieldy if you're lying on your back like you would hold an iPad Mini above your head. You're going to end up getting hit in the head.
Yeah. You need one of those arms that comes out.
Especially me, because so many times I've fallen asleep in bed reading from my iPad, and it'll hit me in the head and wake me up. And so this could really do some serious injury to me. I think with the
that would hurt.
Pro.
We can see the Louisville papers. Man transported to the hospital.
Yeah.
Death by
iPad stuck in his head.
iPad Pro.
Sticking out of your cranium there.
So, Kev, did you get to try the new keyboard?
The new keyboard on the iPad?
On the Pro? Yeah.
No, they didn't have any. Best Buy said that they're not going to get those for another couple of weeks.
Rick, did you get a chance to play with the display unit?
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
It was better than what I thought it was going to be, which also helped kind of seal my decision between the Logitech keyboard and the Apple one, because I was expecting, just from the pictures of it, I was expecting that, I had the original Surface that had the membrane keyboard, which was just really lousy, and I was expecting it to be like that. But when, I think I said that if I was blind and typing on it, I wouldn't know that it was not just a regular keyboard, because the motion worked really well. We'll save it for another time, but I've changed my mind about the keyboard on the MacBook, and so since they said they were using the same technology, I was afraid it was going to be like that, but it's actually got more travel with the keys, and so I think that. Yeah, I think so, and so I think that you could sit there and type a long time, which is the real key, no pun intended, for any keyboard.
The cloth covering was interesting because that's what makes it look like the membrane.
Right.
But it adds cushion, so it's comfortable typing on the keys. What did you think of the shape of the keys?
They're kind of round, aren't they? Or I'm trying to remember. It didn't stand out to me, obviously, because I can't remember anything specific.
I mean, maybe we've established in the past I'm a little bit of a keyboard snob.
Yeah.
The keys are shaped differently, and so my fingers were having a problem searching them out. It wasn't, at the same time, I didn't have that initial negative sense to it that I had with the MacBook keyboard, which I put my fingers on that and hated it instantly.
Yeah.
This one, it was more like, oh, I could get used to this. But I don't even like Logitech's got a couple of keyboards with those more rounded keys, and I don't like those. It seems odd to my fingers. They don't like it. But that's all muscle memory.
To me, a lot of keyboards, especially ones to go with tablets, to me, they're temporary keyboards. You don't want to be doing long periods of writing on them. I think that on this one, I won't know for certain until I have it, but I think on this keyboard you could.
I do think you're right on that. Is there a way? Do we know if there's a way to make the thing stand up without folding the keyboard out?
Not with that one, I don't think.
See, to me, that's a design flaw.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking to myself, if I got this and I'm watching, say I'm watching this morning, I'm watching Heroes.
Yeah. Kevin, you've got the screen up there. On one of the Apple screens, they show 3 different ways that you can arrange that keyboard cover. Can you show that?
Yep, right here.
Oh, so you can. There you go. So you can. There you go.
Cover.
Okay, so you can do it. That was my question.
Here's one thing that I'd like to say. I think that Microsoft got right, and I wish that Apple would have figured out some way to do this. And that is, with the Surface, you can use any kind of angle you can imagine, from nearly flat to almost straight up. Whereas this is one angle, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem for me. In different settings, depending on how the light's hitting the screen, and all of these are very reflective screens, it's going to be a challenge in certain settings, because I find myself adjusting my Surface Pro, the little kickstand. Now, I don't necessarily want them to put a kickstand on the back of it, but I wish that they could have somehow made, because I've used keyboard cases that had sort of grooves all along here.
And they were variable.
And so there was sort of like a little channel, and it didn't take much to get it to work. So they could have done something like that, where you could get, angles from this direction to almost, if you follow my mouse there, almost straight up.
The key is the connector. It has to hit the connector, and you may be in the same kind of situation even with the Logitech cover.
Yeah, you may. And so it'll be interesting to see. I almost, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I almost think that I may just use my Microsoft mobile keyboard.
Sure.
Which is a great keyboard for a mobile keyboard. I'll try to find it for you so people can see what I'm talking about. It's
I think you're right, Kevin.
Like $60 or something like that. So that makes it even half the price. Well, it's
like their wedge keyboard.
No, it's not
a
wedge.
So, Kev, I do think you're right, and that's one thing that the Surface did get right, is they separated the stand from the keyboard, so you can make it variable. And I'm just not sure, because Apple wants to keep that all one piece. I'm not sure how feasible it is to engineer that. And they've never done that with any of their smart covers. It's always been,
you're right. They never have.
This is the angle. Stand it up or lay it down. That's pretty much what you got. And I just think that's part of their design decision, and they're not gonna change that. And I do think Microsoft did get that right. Even the Surface 3 kickstand that only has the 3 settings, I think is a really nice design. And this is me saying nice things about Microsoft. So they engineered a good piece of hardware. Their software is crap, but they engineered a good piece of hardware.
Well, let's not have that.
I've been in the Windows registry more times since my son got a Surface than I had been in the previous decade.
Well, that's because you want to go into the registry, Wes. I'm sorry. I know you say you don't want to do it, but you talk about it constantly. I've never opened the registry since Windows, I don't know, XP.
Dude, it held on to an alias for his Microsoft account, so it wouldn't put up the MSN, or not MSN, the Microsoft Outlook account for his username on anything. And it's like, how do you get rid of this? And they're like, well, you have to go onto the registry. I'm like, you've got to be kidding.
Okay, I'm switching the subject. Kevin, which keyboard there do you have? You had the keyboards up there a second ago on your screen.
They don't seem to be selling the one that I love in the Microsoft store anymore.
Oops.
And so I'm looking for it.
I have that wedge keyboard as an extra.
Yeah, I don't.
It's on the
that's
screen
not
there.
the one that's different. I guess nobody else liked it but me. So I don't know. I know that I did a review of it on Gotomy Mobile, and I'll see if I can find it. But
I do like the new Apple Magic Keyboard. So
yeah, I haven't played with one yet.
I wish the angle was a little steeper, but it's nice. And again, it's like that type cover or whatever the Microsoft or Apple's calling it now. It's same technology as the MacBook keyboard, but there's more travel distance.
Yeah.
That keyboard that I've got, I don't have it with me. It's actually in my car. Is apparently discontinued, and I can't seem to find it. And so I'm not going to go run around searching for it. But the point is, I think it might almost be better to get a third-party Bluetooth keyboard, because you get it hooked up the first time, and I leave Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on my iPads on all the time, and I still get 8 to 10, 11 hours of battery.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's going to be that big an issue, and I think that if you want to do that, and then I open up the keyboard or take out the keyboard, turn it on, and within about 5 seconds it's connected, and so that's not a real issue. The connector is nice. It's draining the battery just as fast as Bluetooth anyway, right?
And you don't gain anything because it's not like it's lappable.
Well, what appeals to me,
you get to carry two separate devices, which is a pain.
Here's what appeals to me about it: that it's all there connected, and I can carry it in my hand. And I had one of these from Logitech with my old iPad, where it wasn't in a case, but it provided a cover for it. And so I could just carry that into a meeting, and so that's what appeals to me. I don't have to carry a separate thing too. It can kind of all go there as one, but I could still take the iPad off of it if I wanted to. So that's what appeals to me, but I'll have to use it to know for certain.
That one device is the key.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that I don't like with typing with an external keyboard on my iPad. I'm stuck at a desk then.
Yeah.
One thing here's one thing Microsoft got right. Even though it's not ideal, I can stick the Surface on my lap with the keyboard and type away.
Right. But maybe that's something that we could talk about here. Tim Cook made the statement earlier this week that created a lot of controversy, where he said, that this, what did he call the Surface Book? He called it diluted because, the Apple sees this as the transition to replace the PC, and and this is designed very much for that. For instance, the power cord that comes with it is much longer than any power cord that I've ever had for an iPad or even an iPhone. Which those when you have a regular iPad and it starts to run low, you plug it in and set it aside. This is meant to where if it's running low, you can still have it plugged in, and it's designed to be sitting at a desk. This is designed to, you can take it with you, yes, but it also can be used at a desk as your main computer. Now, whether or not that's possible for everyone, it's not, is another question, but they're definitely aiming in that direction with this device.
And I think he's right. We saw a Surface Book yesterday, and as neat as it is, that hinge is awful.
What's awful? Oh, the hinge. Yeah.
That thing, my son was typing on it. He touched the base, and the whole screen started wobbling back and forth. Remember like old laptops with the crappy hinges, and it's like as soon as they got to be like 6 months old, the thing wouldn't stay in place, and you would get dizzy using it. Well, that was what the Surface Book was like right out of the box. You'd sit there typing, it's like bouncing all around. I'm like,
that's because the whole computer is in the screen, so it can work independently.
So it's so heavy. It was cool that he could detach it and use it, and I think that the idea is really cool, but that was weird.
The second version, I'm sure, will be much better.
I think it will be, but the first one was like that was like, it looked so cool in the pictures, and then you see it in action, and the wobble factor on it is absurd. Like, it was just crazy.
It's not that bad.
No, it's pretty bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
No,
I've played with that thing a few times.
Pro
I
4.
played with that thing. You guys are starting to sound like the biggest Apple fanboys.
No, don't say you guys. I'm trying to keep you from getting into this argument.
4 times. The Microsoft makes really
Tim
good
Tim Cook, that statement was, he's such a jerk. I'm sorry. That's just deluded. That's a beautiful piece of machinery, and you guys are just about the only people I've ever heard yet that say, "Oh, I hate that thing." In fact,
I didn't
say I hated it. I said the hinge is bad.
The hinge, that's what I'm talking about. You said the hinge is terrible.
It is. That's all I said. I love the idea. I said I love the concept.
Let's move on, because, I mean, you guys are
No. Look, I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm not trying to make that kind of argument. What I'm interested in, though, is the fact that, because I said Tim Cook's statement was controversial, and I think it was overstatement, it's hyperbole, but what's interesting here, and part of this is with iOS 9, that they're trying to make this more capable. And I'll give you an example. There's a woman in my church who all she has is her computer is an iPad, and she was applying for a job, and they wanted her to submit a resume. And she said, well, how do I do that from my iPad? Now, with iOS 8, she couldn't do that. What I discovered last night was, because I had my iPad open and I shared that screenshot with all of you, there's now this little attachment thing. Attachment icon when you're sending an email, or if you're anything, there's an attachment icon, and not only will allow you to attach something easier than what you've done in the past, but it accesses not just your iCloud drive, but it can access your OneDrive from Microsoft. It can access your Dropbox folders, and that level of Apple opening it up to these other cloud services, that was not available before iOS 9, and so now you start to have this. So okay, this maxes out at 128 gigabytes. I need more space than that. But if your space is just being used up by documents or something, things like that, you can now put them in these other iCloud services, and you can open them and you can attach them as you need to. And I think that's a step forward for professional use, business use, that was just not available in previous versions of iPads. Period.
Right, and it is really cool, and that ability to have different storage options was in iOS 8, but the attachment features new in iOS 9.
Right.
But then here's, Kevin, where I say something nice about Microsoft. They can look at it and go, yeah, we never had that problem because we're just running Windows.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. The thing about, again, we can go crazy. I'm not a Windows fanboy. I'm not at all. I like my Mac. I like my iPad. I like my iPhone. I just think that they start to sound, just because Apple does it, it's better. And you were starting to sound that way. I know you don't think you are, and you don't perceive yourselves being that way, but from someone who's not all in on Apple like you guys are, that's the way that it was starting to sound, and that's what I was reacting to.
Well,
this is a nice addition, but like you said, if they would just give us access to the file system, this wouldn't be necessary. However, what problems does that bring? Yeah, maybe some security issues.
Well, huge security issues and people breaking stuff, but
the thing is, I wish there was a middle way of, if there's a neophyte who doesn't have a clue, we can lock it down for that person by default. But then someone like us, the three of us probably are not likely to have serious security issues. I haven't had a Windows virus in years.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, the only thing I run is Windows Microsoft Defender, and so if you're smart, you're not going to get one on Windows anymore. And so there's a way of fixing this. iOS doesn't have to have this level of locking down, but they cater to the people who that would be very dangerous for them because they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Well, I think that this is Apple's middle way.
Yeah, but it's a clue middle way.
See, their middle way.
Kevin, my point was not to bash Microsoft at all. What I find this interesting. I find this, this very interesting because, you go back to the keynote with what Tim Cook said, about the iPad being their primary vision for the future of personal computing. You know, they see this, you know, and I think involved here is not just iOS 9 new features, not just the iPad Pro, but also their partnership with IBM. They see this as a transition point. You know, kind of like what you had on the PC with DOS to Windows, what you had, you know, from the Apple side, from Apple to Macintosh. When all of those came out, you know, when Windows 1 first came out, DOS was still much more powerful and much more capable. You know, Windows didn't become usable until version 3.1, and the same thing with the Macintosh. You know, Apple still sold Apple IIs through 1992, but I think that. But what happens is, as these shifts take place, and I'm not saying it's an Apple-only shift, as these shifts take place, using a computer becomes easier. I mean, you know, at one point it was punch cards and tape drives, and so, but it becomes easier with each iteration. And so, what I think that what it's interesting to look at Apple's attempt to transition people away from you know, traditional laptop, desktop computer operating systems to something like this that's very portable. You know, Antoine would be appreciative of this. Very portable, and you know, touch interface, keyboard is optional, and so forth. And Microsoft is playing with this too. You know, the RT did not quite work. That was, I think, an attempt that they were to do that, but that didn't work because they didn't have the apps, but because it was bifurcated with the desktop in there as well. You know, if they had waited a year and had been better prepared, that might have taken off. You know, and so this is what interests me. Again, it's not an Apple versus Microsoft, because more than likely, if this shift occurs, we're going to see more than one company do this, more than one platform do this. You know, we could talk about Android and Chrome here as well. But to see this shift to a new way of doing things. You know, the other interesting thing about this iPad Pro is that it has this A9X processor rivals the processors from Intel that are in, you know, standard computers. You know, the speed tests have shown it to be faster than the i5s in the Surface Pro 4. Now, again, you've got to have applications to take advantage of that. But still, this is a, you know, we could say that this iPad Pro is a quote-unquote PC class machine, you know, if the applications will be written to take advantage of it. So it's, to me, the shift is interesting. You know, I'm not saying one company versus another, but it's very interesting to see some of this taking place.
Right. My biggest struggle with the iPad ecosystem right now is there's no way to do local mass storage.
Yeah.
So and that's what I said when they did the keynote, is that you can edit 4K video. That's awesome.
Right.
I have 128 gigs of space on here. What can I can edit like a second of 4K video?
Those are going to be short videos, yeah.
Like, you know, I can't use, like, for me, that's not pro. Like, I can't use that. That's where Microsoft has got this idea much better suited, to where I can just plug in a drive and suddenly be doing full work. And I think Microsoft's got a really good grasp of, you know, people have software, they want to keep using it, and they don't want to have watered down versions of it. And this was my comment to you when, you know, you demonstrated accordance on this huge glorious screen of the iPad Pro. Well, I want to have something like that. I don't want to, you know, a thing that only has two-thirds or half of the features of the desktop equivalent. Yeah. I want a full. This thing is as fast as my desktop. I want to have all the features of my desktop.
That's why I say the applications will have to be written to it, and the interface will have to be updated. You know, to go from mouse to go to touch, and so interfaces have to be rethought. So it'll be interesting to see if this happens. You know, where iOS and Android is concerned, you've got a great, you know, library of apps that are available, but they need to be beefed up. And so we may be able to see that happen here, because I'm still at the point that I cannot do all of my work on the iPad. If I could do all of my work on the iPad, I would do it. And there may come a day where I will be able to do that, but there's certain things like video editing, like, you know, you talk about. I'm not going to be able to do some of the videos that I use because they're going to be too long for this, and transferring the video files would take too long, from one device to another. But for a lot of people, this could be the only machine that they need, and so it's according to what a person's uses are. And I've had the feeling, the gut level feeling, and some people say I'm crazy. I think there'll come a day when Apple, selling enough iOS devices and not as many Macs, because even with the iPad sales declining over the last year, there's still twice as many iPads sold as Macs. I think one day that they're going to say, we're going to phase out the Mac, just like they did with the Apple II when the Mac came along. And they'll say, okay, if you need the truck, if you need to do that long-term video editing, that's where you get something else.
That'll be an interesting day if they.
The
iPad's going to have to really mature because they'll have some awfully angry Apple.
Yeah.
Fanatics.
I mean, I guess you can see it kind of happening with the way that they're doing with Final Cut and stuff like that. I mean, it looks the interface looks almost identical to iMovie now.
Well, but what they did with the iWork apps and what they did with iMovie is they created a shared code base that would work with iOS too. I mean, iOS as well. And so it makes me even wonder if that won't be the next shoe to drop, that there is a Final Cut Pro available for iOS with some kind of storage solution. You'd have to have some kind of storage solution.
I'm still trying to figure that one out. So if they do that, and I get Scrivener on my iPad, and I have Scrivener's composition mode to write, which is like my favorite thing to do now, I could do an iPad Pro. But until they do that, I'm like, no.
Well, to go forward from this, if you're out there and you're looking to buy one device to do Bible study on, based on your experience right now, Rick, is this one device? I'm talking about one device like you don't own another computer. Yeah. You can't afford to have a MacBook and an iPad Pro, or you can't afford to have even just a $500 Windows computer and an iPad Pro. You're going to get either an iPad Pro or a traditional laptop to do Bible study. Is the iPad Pro at the point where you could do your Bible study on this device 100% of the time?
If we're talking just basic Bible study, then I say yes. If you, regardless of whether you're talking about Accordance or Logos or Olive Tree, Olive Tree's generally been mobile first anyway. Mm-hmm. It's according to that level. What I always say when I do training seminars for Accordance is that you have different levels of people using it. Some for just basic Bible study, personal group or whatever, pastors, scholars, all the way up to people doing intensive Dead Sea Scrolls research. There's different uses for it, and most of these programs are flexible like that. I think your most intensive work is not there yet because the program.
For example, give me an example of intensive work that you couldn't do on it yet.
I'm thinking that when you're doing textual criticism, for instance, and you want to have multiple manuscripts side by side, you can do two now in most of these devices. You could put up a couple of manuscripts because you can put things in parallel, but most of them are limited to 2 panes. Once that kind of capability, and again, the iPad Pro invites that because the screen is so much larger. Once you can do some of that kind of thing, then you can get into some more of the advanced thing. But the software is going to have to be written for it. I think the processor is capable of it. I don't think the processor is going to hold anything back. Even if you think in terms of like the Accordance, the 3D maps and things like that, this processor I think would handle that. It's just a matter of whether or not software companies will write to that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't do my sermon research on an iPad right now. Not in Olive Tree, not in Accordance, not in anything. And it's partly my work though. It's because I can't edit my user notes.
Yeah.
So I can't work through my translation. I can't have automatically popped up instant details when I want to do look at the lexical meanings. I can't have different tabs that have the commentary or the BDAG or Hallett or whatever open. So for me right now, for my sermon preparation, I'm saying go with the desktop computer, whether it's or laptop, whether it's Mac or Windows. I really don't care.
Yeah, I think most people would probably feel that way, Wes, is that if you could only have one device, you still need a laptop for most pastors, in other words, or seminary professors, or anyone who's going to do advanced Bible
For what
study.
I
If you're a Sunday school teacher, a church member who really gets into deep Bible study, but you're not doing serious word studies or those kinds of things, you may not need more
You
than
could probably
just
get away.
this.
And that's to me, that's the whole thing with that iPad Pro. I don't want to compromise on my use case. I want
So
to do this the way I want it.
For Bible study, leave off the word Pro on this device.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still iPad consumer.
Well, and that's like what Rick said. That's the software issue. It's not the hardware.
Right, you're right.
And
Now,
I
what would be interesting is if
I think you could rework the software to get a much better feature set. But it's not there.
But you know, for again what we said at the beginning of the hour, for the pastor or the teacher who wants to teach from this device, I think it's going to be awesome. You know, one of the neatest setups I've ever seen, and I don't remember the company that creates this, but they have it to where it's a 2 projector system, and they had a podium where the image actually comes into the podium, and it's almost like one of those old big Surface. You know, remember the original Microsoft Surface?
The Surface table.
Yeah, it was almost like that, but it was on the podium, and you could control the PowerPoint from right there, and then you've got your other projector going there, and I thought that was so awesome when I saw it, and it was very expensive. But you know, this is a big flat surface, not to confuse things, that you can put on a podium, and you can see so much at one time as you're teaching, as you're preaching. And again, I'm sure PowerPoint will be like this as well, but Keynote was just amazing. And I'll use it this Sunday for the first time, and I can let you know.
Yeah, I want to see if split screen works, so keep a Bible open.
Yeah, that I don't know. But you know what I do all the time anyway? This past Sunday I was teaching. I was actually using I had my iPhone connected to the projector because I told you I sold my iPad too early waiting for this thing. Mm-hmm. But you know, I regularly will bounce out of Keynote, and like I went to Accordance and was showing something in the scriptures, especially if it's something that's just spur of the moment or there's a question or whatever, and then I bounce right back into Keynote. So you can always do that. But what are you wanting to do, Wes? Are you saying that like you?
I just want to have the Bible text in one pane and have my notes and screen on the other.
For other people to see, or just for you to see?
Just for me.
Okay, I got you.
Well, what I'd like to see is that I don't like the notes features in either Keynote or PowerPoint on the iPad because I can only see just a little bit relating to that slide.
You can see a lot on the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
But only related to that slide, though. Like, I can't put all my notes. I'd have to put all my notes on every...
Oh, see, that's just the way I use notes, is because the notes are all describe the build and the...
Yeah, I just have it working on that.
I want to have Keynote or PowerPoint on one side and Microsoft Word mobile on the other side, and just ignore the notes feature in it, because that also adds another step to my preparation, having to copy in notes into the PowerPoint.
Hey, that's my final step on Sunday morning.
Copying in the notes.
That's my memorizing the sermon. I take everywhere where I have an image tag for a build, I put that into my notes, and I put
I don't do that, so I don't want to do that. So I'd like to open. Here's the way I hope it works. I hope it works that I can open Keynote, go ahead and do the screen share, and then slide over Word and not have it affect the screen share of Keynote.
I'll bet you could.
I hope that's the way it works. If it doesn't work,
I'm predicting it won't work, but we'll see.
I bet it doesn't either, but I hope it does.
No, I think it will, because you're not necessarily mirroring the screen at that point.
Yeah.
So slide over works.
If we want to be if we were betting people, I'd be willing to put money that it doesn't.
We'll get your iPad area and
I'll try it in a minute. I'll try it in a minute. I'm not going to do it while we're here in the show, but I've got an external monitor here. I'll just connect my iPad Pro to the monitor and I'll test it out.
That's the other interesting thing would be if you connected physically, because I've got a long enough cable where I normally teach from my iPad on Wednesday night, my Wednesday night sermon. Or Wednesday night Bible study, and I could just plug in, and even if it doesn't mirror wirelessly, if I can still plug into it, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. Well, let's just jump on. I've got the new Apple TV, so do you guys want to talk about that for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
Those of you who may or may not know, of course, Apple's had an Apple TV for a long time. The first generation, I don't know what it was like because it was expensive and not worth buying in my opinion. But I bought the next one, which looked like the little squared off black hockey puck, and it was pretty awesome in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just kind of they updated the hardware just a little bit to the third generation. But it just kind of languished, didn't it? I mean, they just kind of let it go and didn't really do anything, because I know they seem to be trying to work with this, and I think also they were trying to get partnerships for live TV, and that just never worked. But they finally released this, and it's a little bit thicker, than the previous versions. It's definitely faster. It's a lot faster. And this remote is I've got kind of a love-hate relationship with it. It's the remote. Let's see if I can get a better picture of it.
The question is, do you like it better than the previous remote?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I've got a love-hate relationship with it. Here's the thing. I love the fact that I can walk into I have it hooked up to our bedroom TV.
Okay.
I can walk in and just hit one of the buttons or the clickable touch screen, and it turns my TV on. I can't remember what the name of that technology is. That when you plug an HDMI into a TV set, I can't remember what it's called. Samsung has a weird name for it, but anyway, the TV senses a signal from the HDMI cable and automatically turns the TV on and switches to that.
Like a wake on demand.
The Roku, what's that?
Like a wake on demand.
Right. The Roku box has that. The NVIDIA Shield TV has that. Cool. The Chromecast has that. By the way, I've got the new Chromecast too. We could mention that here in just a second. I like how fast. If you're in here's my most common use case. I'm one of these people. I can't sleep at night. I just don't fall asleep, and so I got to have something on to keep my mind from racing and thinking constantly.
You're one of those.
And so what I do, what's that?
I said you're one of those.
Yes, I'm one of those. And so what I do is I put it on reruns of old shows that I've seen 100 times, and I don't have to worry about, like, I'm not worried, am I going to miss something in this? So it's usually The West Wing or MASH or Seinfeld. And so that's what I fall asleep to. My wife hates this, but she's already asleep, so it doesn't bother her. The Netflix app on the Apple TV had the feature where it would automatically play the next version.
Yeah.
But on most devices, after about 3, it'll ask, do you really want to keep going? And you say yes. Okay. On this, it doesn't. It just keeps going.
Okay.
So it's playing all night long. So I have to set my sleep thing to get it to shut off.
Kevin Purcell, waster of electricity. Gotcha.
Yes, I am. But that said, I like the search feature. I can't get myself trained to search with voice. I've got an Amazon Alexa, and it just sits there. I just barely use it because I just can't train myself to do it. Do you guys do that often with Siri or Google or whatever?
Only when driving. I kind of with you, because like searching for something, it's like you do it with voice and you're broadcasting to like everybody around, like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm trying to hide anything, but it just seems weird to me. Like,
I'm the same way. I like to do it alone.
Yeah.
If you can do it, though, if you do it, it's pretty awesome. Siri
That's what I've
on
heard.
the Apple TV is pretty awesome.
Well,
for example, you
Go
can
ahead.
say, show me Big Bang Theory if you like that show. I think the show's getting really terrible. But or, show me Mad Max Fury Road. And then, well, like, let's say you wanted to watch the original Mad Max. Show me Mad Max, I can't remember the first movie.
Literally Mad Max.
Literally Mad Max, okay.
Yeah.
And then you could say, what other movies have Mel Gibson in it? Show me the ones he directed.
Oh, okay.
And it remembers that you're searching about Mel Gibson, and so when you say he, it's thinking of him. So it's got good interactive ability. Here's the other thing. Here's the one thing I don't like, and that's the price. I don't think it's $50 better than the previous version. They dropped the other one down to $69. I think they should have kept it at $100. However, if you get the 64, I do think it's worth more to get the other one. I didn't buy the game controller because I've got 3 devices hooked up to my bedroom TV that I can play games on, and I don't play games on any of them. I've got an NVIDIA Shield. I've got the Fire TV. Anyway, so I just don't do it. I have all the latest set-top boxes. The latest Chromecast is really nice. It's better than the original one. It's just as cheap. I've got the brand new Apple TV. I've got the brand new Fire TV. I've got the NVIDIA Shield TV, which is an Android TV. And of all of them, if they fix that one little feature in the Netflix app, I'd say get the Apple TV.
I got to tell you, I love my first-gen Chromecast.
Yeah, the second gen is enough of an improvement, and it's so cheap that it's worth the upgrade. For the live feature that it pops up automatically for you when you send something to it, and then also it shows stuff in the app. You can search for things in Netflix and Hulu and stuff in the.
That's software. I can do that with my first gen too.
Well, hey, I've got 2 questions for you.
In the Chromecast app, you can't on the first gen.
No, I can.
Oh, did they update it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know they updated it. Okay.
I've got 2 questions for you
Go
about
ahead.
the Apple TV, Kevin. Number 1, have you tried out the feature where you couldn't hear what someone said and you said, you know?
Yeah, what did he say? Yeah, that's awesome.
Really?
I'm going deaf, and so in case you don't know what happens, you say you're watching a show and you say, "What did he say?"
Which we say all the time.
Right.
It'll skip back a little bit, and then it will turn on the captions. Okay. Now it only works in Apple content.
So it doesn't work on like Netflix or anything.
It's not in Netflix or Hulu yet.
Maybe it will be.
I hope they add it because that's a pretty neat thing.
Because I'm convinced that sound editors are just not being educated like they used to be, because I refuse to say that it's my hearing is getting worse. But it seems like all the time Kathy and I are watching a show, and what did she say? What did he say? And so to me, that's a big selling point of this.
The mix is getting really bad. It's whatever culturally is now. It's like the background music and the background noise.
Yeah.
That sense of we want to make it earthy, and so but half the time you can't hear the actor.
The other problem
they're editing for the center channel in a 7.1 surround system. That's what they're wanting the theatrical experience to be the best. And so in the movie theater where they have great speakers up there in the front for the center channel, it's awesome. If you have the money to spend on a great center channel speaker in your home theater system, then it's also really good. Most people don't have that. Most people just use stereo, or maybe they've got a 2.1, a subwoofer, and 2 speakers.
Right.
And so in that case, you're losing it.
I don't even have that. We got a new TV in January, to replace our old plasma screen that I'd gotten in 2010 because it had gone out. But the speakers are now in the back so that they have much less bezel. And so you almost have to get a sound bar, which we haven't done, and it just makes it hard to hear. Anyway, I'm starting to sound like an old man now. Let me ask you the second question, though, because I wasn't quite clear on, you touched this, but I wasn't quite clear. Do you recommend the $149 or the $199? Because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about maybe in January getting one of these new Apple TVs because I've got the previous one. I would just look at it, and I'd probably get the $149 because I'm probably not going to play that many games on it.
That's, I think, the difference you're going to have to ask yourself. Do I want to load it up with lots of apps?
Because it's just a larger hard drive, right?
Yeah, right. It's just double the hard drive. That's as far as I know, that's the only difference.
What's the storage on the 149?
I bought the 149 with the 32 gig.
Okay.
You can get the 199 with 64 gig. And at this point, I haven't noticed any problems.
The previous one has 8, right? I mean, I've got whatever the previous generation is.
I think that's what it had, but it was just you couldn't download lots of apps, so it didn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah.
You couldn't store stuff locally on it, so it didn't really matter.
What I find interesting is that the iOS apps that are converted over for tvOS, if you bought them, you get them on the Apple TV apparently.
Yeah, most of that is just, and there's a few of them that, from what I understand, don't work as well because they haven't used them, or they haven't done anything to the app to make it look proper.
Right.
But for the most part, you're right. You're going to get the same app.
So that's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. Like, what happens when like non-gaming and non-entertainment apps start wanting to make use of iCloud storage and the Apple TV?
Yeah, right now it's hard to find apps on it. The App Store is not very well organized.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there aren't enough apps to make it a terrible problem.
Right, but it will be.
It will be as it grows. And another thing that I understand is they're not allowing certain kinds of apps, like they're not allowing productivity apps on it.
Really?
And you can't plug a Bluetooth keyboard. You can't connect a Bluetooth keyboard to this one. Whereas you could
mirror
the
your
previous.
laptop.
Really?
You can mirror your laptop to it, but that's,
At that point, why? Well, how is the mirroring? Is it faster?
it's fine. It's just this. I can't really say there's any difference. I don't know.
That's going to depend upon your Wi-Fi, regardless.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of it. I can't say I've done tons of it, so I can give you a real good hardcore.
I've thought about taking my old Apple TV and carrying it with me because at least once a week I'm connected to a projector,
Right.
and often 2 or 3 times a week, according to what I'm doing in a particular week. And so I thought about taking the old Apple TV and using that just to allow me to be wireless, and I can move around a little bit better with an iPad.
That's fine as long as you don't mind having to rehook up to the Wi-Fi wherever you're at.
Yeah.
That's one issue I've thought about. What I think
Wi-Fi thing.
What I think might be a good thing, this thing coming out, is I bet you're going to start being able to find perfectly good previous gen Apple TVs for really cheap. And places like churches and nonprofits and schools will be able to install them in, wherever they've got a projector or a TV hooked up, so that teachers and students can hook up to it really, really easily. That's actually I'm going to sort of do hand-me-down. My oldest Apple TV is sitting in my fellowship hall here at the church, so I'm going to take the second gen Apple TV and put it over here. And I'm going to take that first gen. It's not really first gen because it's first gen of the newest kind.
It's the 720, the black one, the 720.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take that to our associational office because there's lots of people in our association carry around iPhones, and this way they would know that they could run Keynote. We have a ministers conference once a week, and some of them may want to show stuff. Or
the 720s go for more on eBay because they're hackable.
Yeah,
really?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I made that mistake. I went to sell mine, and I didn't realize that. I'm thinking, if I get $55, I'm fine with that. I mean, and it sold like that because I put a, buy now for $55, and then I really looked and saw them selling for much more than that because those are the ones that are in demand.
I'm not using mine anymore. Maybe I'll sell it out and get the new one.
Well, I may have to do that instead. Let the old association figure out their own way.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that at home, my Apple TV got demoted to the basement because we got a smart TV and the apps were good enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to switch inputs.
Yeah, that's the biggest competitor for all these devices are the smart TVs.
Yeah.
So,
Ours has the apps too. I can even play PlayStation games on mine because I've got a Sony set, and all I've got to do is get a PlayStation controller, and I can download games to the TV. I just haven't ever done it.
mm-hmm.
Now, if you're a real gamer, the NVIDIA Shield TV is the best of the breed, in my opinion.
Is that playing like PC games? Is it hooked to Steam or?
They have two things. First of all, you can get Android TV apps on it. So any Android app that is optimized for Android TV will work on it, and lots of games are doing that now.
Okay.
Second of all, they have a subscription service that is I can't remember what it's called. Not Steam. Anyway, it's NVIDIA's subscription service. It's like $10 a month, and there's lots of, not the latest greatest, but lots of really good games. My son loves it. My youngest son is a big gamer, and he loves it. And they gave you a 3 months or 4 months free trial because it was in beta. Now that it's out, you have to pay $10 for it. And that's what it's doing is it's playing streamed games from their servers, which are basically running PC versions. But then here's the other thing: if you've got a PC in the house with Steam installed, it'll stream those Steam games from that PC in your house to the NVIDIA Shield TV. So there's really 3 options for playing games. So it's really, really nice setup for that. And
Interesting.
It's not, it's definitely not as good as like an Xbox or a PlayStation, but it's really good for what you're getting. It's really good, and the controller's great.
Awesome.
The controller on it's really nice. The Roku, I don't have the Roku 4, but from what I've read, it's not new enough. It's just really just 4K.
I've always been kind of meh on Roku.
I love Roku. Roku's great. Roku,
I think I got the wrong one.
Yeah, if you get the best one, the highest quality one, it's excellent. Plus, it'll do Android. It'll act like a Chromecast, and then there's apps that you can install that let you do AirPlay.
Oh, really? Okay.
With your iOS, you can do that on an Android TV as well.
Okay, cool.
There's apps you can install on an Android TV, and then of course Chromecast. There's a lot of iOS apps that will cast to the Chromecast. So there's lots of great options. It's amazing what you have available today. And then the Amazon Fire TV is awesome if you're an Amazon content user. It's just, it's not better than any of the others.
That's my big problem with the Apple TV is that there's no Amazon, and I've gone to Amazon to buy all my.
I think there will be.
Well, because all they have to do is make an app now.
Right. I think there will be.
Yeah, but Amazon decided not to sell the new Apple TV.
I know. I think that was just all publicity nonsense. I think that they will eventually come out with an app, and you'll be able to watch it on the Apple TV.
I hope so.
And Amazon also decided that they don't want to have their a streaming app on Android, even though their mobile devices are all based on Android, which that's always blown my mind.
Yeah, you can stream Amazon.
It's a newer thing. They like years and years ago when I first got my Nexus, I'm like, I got my Amazon Instant Video. It's not in the Play Store? Like, I didn't understand.
No, it's in the Amazon App Store that you download in the Play Store.
Yeah, it is now.
Yeah.
And the Amazon app is
available
for standard iOS devices, which you can then stream to your TV.
Yep, which is what I do.
Mirror the screen. All right, well, we've covered it, and again, we've gone long. That's okay. It was a good discussion. Thank you, guys. I appreciate, Rick, all your insight, and I don't know whether I'll have mine by next week or not. I'm going to try to go through the T-Mobile. T-Mobile said that they would sell them for basically like buying a phone. You pay $200 and get on their contract with it's like $38 a month or something like that. Which, if you do the math, 38. What's 38 times 18?
I don't know, but I can't imagine you keeping one device for 2 years, Kevin.
$684.
So you're actually getting it for a lot less, aren't you?
Is it? Which model is it?
It's the only one that you can get with Wi-Fi cellular.
Oh, okay.
128 Wi-Fi cellular.
That is a lot less. Do you have to pay? Do you have to add it to your account then for?
Surely. So
that you're paying probably more like $48 a month because you have to pay $10 for the tablet thing.
Right, but I already paid
you're adding
my iPad Mini.
180. It actually comes out about the same thing because you're adding 180 to add your
$200 plus the 180 for the monthly
contract.
Thing. But you'd have to pay that if you bought the thing outright. You'd still have to pay that $180.
That's true. Yeah.
To use it for 18. So I don't really consider that a.
It comes out as a
extra
getting data.
Included expense. So we'll see. I don't know how that's going to work yet. But then again, I may just take that iPad Mini I bought back to Best Buy and pick one up today. I don't know.
All right.
We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, folks. As we say at the end of this all the time, you can get this over at Theotek.com. And we also have our podcast, the audio version of it, usually goes up about a week or so later on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can subscribe to it. If you use Feedly, you can just put kevinpurcell.org in your Feedly feed, and you'll find it there as well. We've had fun doing this. Next week, I haven't told you guys this yet, but it's very likely next week I won't be able to do the podcast. I'm taking my son to North Greenville University for an overnight, and I'm taking him on Thursday night next week, and so I probably won't be able to do it. So I think
that works because I'll be in Atlanta doing a training seminar all day on Friday next week.
So we'll just plan not to have one next week. So in 2 weeks, if you're watching this still, thank you.
That's the day after Thanksgiving.
Pick it up in
Black Friday.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. We'll see how
We
that
can
works.
talk about Black Friday deals.
That's true.
Oh,
All right. So maybe in 2 weeks we'll be here. If not, then it'll be 3. But this has been the Theotek Podcast, signing off.
Thanks, guys.
See you.